bridge of the Queen Mary, and it's a real honour to be allowed to stand here, this side of the barrier, I must say. So, this Queen Mary was designed to be one of two ships that Cunard would operate across the Atlantic, and she was designed to be the smallest ship that would return a profit on a 1 week cycle. So you'd have Queen Elizabeth sailing from New York. The same day Queen Mary would sail from Southampton. They would meet mid-Atlantic, and it was 3.5, 4 days crossing, and then the rest of the time they would be changing the laundry and the like. But it was a 1 week turnaround voyage. So it's the smallest ship that Cunard thought would be able to do that. And the speed required was 28.5 knots, which is very fast for certainly today with the cost of fuel and everything. And this ship is driven by 4 steam turbines, nominally about 160,000 shaft horsepower. Steam was raised in 24 boilers, and that fed the steam turbines. And you see the control of the engine room there from the telegraphs. There are 4 for each, 1 for each of the 4 propellers, and the order would be given. The message would ring down in the appropriate engine room. The engineers down there would then acknowledge that they've received the command, and then they would do what's necessary with the steam into the turbines to give the speed that was needed. Now, like Queen Mary 2, there's a lot of redundancy built in this ship, because obviously crossing the North Atlantic, when you get halfway, if something goes wrong, you can't go somewhere to fix it, you've got to have it on board. So that's why we have 2 telemotors, and these are to command the rudder. So there was one, and one auxiliary one as well. The ship's compass, or the binnacle, in the centre, and there are various other instruments around to alert the forecastle and the stern when they're dropping the anchor and when they're mooring the ship. You see there's the rev per minute indicators, again for the propellers each side, and here we have the echo sounder, which is monitoring the water depth underneath the ship. Now at the back there are various instruments that were used on the bridge, but the stabilizer panel is over in the corner there, so do have a look there. And originally Queen Mary was built without stabilizers, and she, like most of the ships of the period, was a horrendous roller. She would roll over 30, 40 degrees, absolutely terrifying for the passengers. An early passenger was a young author, Paul Gallico, and he was so terrified of his experience of being on Queen Mary in a storm that he wrote the Poseidon Adventure. And of course this ship was used as the exterior of the Poseidon, and they did various scenes on the deck, so that was a nice connection. But Cunard, when stabilizers became more prevalent and they began to be fitted to ships, Cunard initially only fitted Queen Elizabeth with stabilizers because they anticipated that Queen Mary would be leaving service in the early 1960s, when a new ship that Cunard were building called Q3 would come into service. In the event, Q3 was cancelled, and so Cunard decided as an interim measure to fit stabilizers on this ship, and that was done in the late 1950s. And it was a big job because the stabilizers, they need a huge watertight box, and there are 4 of them on this ship, 2 each side, and so space had to be made within the existing engine room, and it was done over a period of voyages, but they got ready and then the final installation was done when the ship was put into dry dock. So do have a look round the bridge and the stabiliser panel over there. The bridge rings, unlike modern ships, are open. We tend now to have the enclosure of the bridge right from one side to the other. The reason for that is that we now have a lot of very delicate electronic equipment, and that obviously you don't want to get wet, and so that's why we enclose it. Most of the navigating officers are very much against having the enclosed because they say they like to feel the wind and the like to gauge the ship, but we give them so much instrumentation now that I think after a few months on a modern ship they get used to it and they're not so worried. So do have a look round and then we'll continue with the tour. Thank you.